The question goes, I wanted to ask you for some guidance regarding a friend who is going through a divorce. This involves our kids who play together. So my two boys and her son play together every day, and lately my boys have been acting out. And in parentheses it says, because their dad left for work in a different city. We have a behavior chart in place and a schedule. We talk to daddy every day, etc., etc. My boys have no idea that their friend's parents are divorcing. The mom is a friend, and when she told me about her separation and divorce back in February, she told me not to tell anyone, including my boys, because she and her husband have not told their kids. Now, fast forward to 4 months later, she already talked to her kids about their separation. The parents are scheduled to separate in late summer. I have not told my kids yet. I didn't think about telling my boys because it's not our story, but lately my kids and her son have been acting out when they play together. My 7-year-old has been acting up mainly because of our situation at home with their dad, and her son acts up because of his parents' situation. My friend told me her son has been acting up too. So I wanted to talk to my boys about their friend's parents' separation. So both my boys have an understanding and empathy towards their friend. So my question is, do you think I should talk to my boys about their friend's parents' situation? If so, when do you think is a good time for me to talk to my boys? So this is a very valid question and a very normal situation that can come up in between friends and family. And what I said earlier on, that there's so many different pieces going on here. One is that the first thing is that there's two different issues going on here, because this person and her kids have their own situation at home, as she says, that her boys have been acting up because their dad left for work in a different city. And so, and she states that we have a behavior chart in place and a schedule. So first thing to understand is that behavior is not the problem. Behavior is a symptom. And I'll say that again because people don't understand that we look to want to change what's happening on the outside without addressing what is happening on the inside, because what is happening on the inside is a direct indication of what you're going to see on the outside. And in order to, we're not robots, we're human beings, we're people. And in order to alleviate or to address or to find a solution for the behavior that you see on the outside, you have to address the underlying root cause, which is coming from inside. So we don't want to look at behavior and say, fix this, mold this, change this. And it's not like, taking a tool and like tinkering around with something that needs to be fixed. We also have this notion as human beings that there may be something wrong with us, we're not behaving properly, we need to be fixed. No, there's nothing wrong with us. The behavior is just showing you where there needs to be some addressing the underlying root cause, and that there's some healing or there's something going on underneath that needs to happen. And so we don't want to just fix the behavior, because if you don't take care of the root cause, it's going to come out. It's kind of like, when there's water leaking and you plug up one hole and it causes so much pressure, it makes another hole and it comes out through there, and you patch that up, and then the water is still leaking, right? It's still overflowing. And then it's constantly going to coming out through weak spots. And just patching up holes is just like putting a Band-Aid on the surface. And that's what it's like when you're looking at behavior. So I know that there's lots of things out there in terms of behavior charts. However, we like to call it on-track and off-track behavior, right? When a child is feeling well inside, and even a human being, talking about well-being here, they're going to be on track and they're going to behave as their best. Okay, so we don't want to fix the outside, we want to take a look at what's happening on the inside. So it's okay, everybody shows up according to what's happening internally for themselves. So if your boys have been acting out, that means that they need connection. That means that they need nurturing. They don't need to be shifted, okay, stop doing that, do this. It's not about the doing, and it's same thing for us as adults. It's not, we're not human doings, we're human beings, right? So it's learning to be. So you want to put an end to the behavior, like by setting limits. And I know I'm getting into, I don't want to go into so much detail because I teach this in my program, and I can show you how to do that. But right now, what I'm just trying to teach you and show you, a child doesn't need behavior correction. A child needs you to come in with connection, with nurturing, with support, and warmth and love. It doesn't need to be told, stop doing this, do this instead, right? Because once you understand how behavior works, you'll see it's not about addressing what's on the outside. Because once a child feels connected and nurtured, then the behavior automatically corrects, right? And when a child feels, when you want to get a child back on track to have appropriate good behavior, you want them to feel connected and safe and secure for them to share what's really going on, and why, and there's all types of techniques and things like and how to do this, but I'm not going to get into that detail here. So that's how you can address your boys acting out. Now, in regards to what's happened with their friends' parents and them splitting up and going through a divorce, and her telling you about it, it's a very, very good idea to talk to your children, because when children see other people's parents splitting up, families, splitting apart, and there being a divorce, automatically they will start to get worried and afraid. What will happen to my family? What will happen to my parents? And they will also automatically blame themselves, because that's what children do. So when there's an issue or there's a problem or there's a fight or discrepancy, they tend to blame themselves, and then they start micromanaging and fixing. Like they try to manage dad's behavior and try to manage mom's behavior and make sure there's no conflicts and no fight. And that's not the job of a child. So it is definitely a good idea, especially since the mom has already told the children about it. It's a very good idea to sit down with your children, mom and dad, to sit down with your own children and tell them that this is what's happening with our friends and their parents, and they're separating. So their family's going to look different. Their family's dynamics are going to change, but they can still be friends with you. I'm still going to be friends with mom or dad. Their family is going to be living in different homes, and it's going to be hard for them. So sometimes that's why they may be, not at their best, because they're not doing well. And so we're going to try to help them and support them, in whatever way they can. And then to reassure them that, mom and dad are, I'm talking about in your own family now, okay? Because all families have disagreements, all couples have disagreements and arguments, right? But it's in how we have the arguments, how we have the disagreements, and how we connect back to each other, and how we make up. All of those things are important, because you can tell your children, just like you guys, you brothers, you guys fight, you guys argue, but you love each other, right? And it's also important to be realistic with your children and tell them, like, there are certain ties. This is a good opportunity to talk to them about blood ties and about marital ties, and what is the difference, and how Allah obligates us with blood ties, and marriages are a little bit different. And your mom and dad both love you very much, whether we're married or we're not married. And right now we are separated because dad is moved to a different city for work, and we're separated, but we're not divorced. We're still very much married, and we still very much love each other and are a family in that regard, even though we're not living together on the weekdays, but we see each other on the weekends. And I don't want you to be afraid of us splitting apart, because that is what's going to happen with your children. They're going to have those fears, and to reassure them that whether, if and when that ever happens, it's not on the plan, but also help them to know that things can happen, shifts can happen, but mom and dad are always going to be there for them, to help them, to love them, to take care of them, protect them, whether they're living in the same house or not. Because right now, you're not living in the same house, right? But you're still married. So it can feel very similar for you and for your children as well. So that's the second part, is to sit down with your kids and reassure them that they're okay, their family is, you know, in good shape. And that is also a reminder for you and your husband as well to prioritize your marriage, to prioritize your relationship, because marriages don't break down overnight. They crumble and they fall apart through neglect, through lack of communication, a lack of intention and conscious effort, right? So that always has to be a work in progress. And the best thing you can do for your kids is have a healthy sense of self and a healthy marriage for your children. The last question was in here. Okay, it was about your children and your friends' children when they're together acting out. And you know, the thing about them acting out there, like kids act out. I mean, the kids fight, they have misunderstandings, and it's our job to help to listen to them, right? Because a lot of times when kids fight or they're off track, it's really about going in there as the parent and the adult and the leader, the one who's in charge. And sometimes kids need a separation or a break, or sometimes you need to be more involved, because a lot of times when, as parents, you know, especially moms, we just want to have our own mom time together or adult time together, and we leave the kids to play. And sometimes they need to be led or directed in how to play, because there's just a lot of, if they're irritable or they're irritated, then they're going to start snapping and taking it out on each other. Just like us adults, we do that as well. So maybe sometimes they need more direction. They need, when they're playing, they need the parents or the moms to be actively involved in the play as well, instead of leaving them on their own. And sometimes when they're off track, they just need a little bit more of that. And all it requires really is for you to be more aware, paying more attention, be more intuitive. Give your child what they need. If they're okay playing alone, or if they're fighting too much, or they're getting on each other's nerves and snapping at each other, then you get involved and you play with them, so you can direct them and you can help them in their frustration level. And part of it is being normal human beings and kids learning how to interact with each other. And sometimes if you're just so upset and frustrated and you're just not doing well, maybe it's time to take a little break and you can cut the play date short, right? There's no fast and hard rules. You just have to trust yourself and giving yourself and your child what you need in those times. And in terms of having understanding and empathy towards their friend, that's good. We want to have that. However, we don't want to make it okay for certain behaviors to be okay, meaning we don't want to accept or tolerate when somebody is being unfair or unjust, or there's, for example, I'll give you an example. If a child is playing and let's say the child who's going through a difficult time or a hard time wants your child's toy, and your child is willing to give it, you can talk to your child about that, you know, like being lenient and okay, but there has to be a balance in this, meaning like it can't be all one-sided, like, okay, they always get their way and they always get to have our stuff, and you know, nobody says anything to them and we're only the ones that get reprimanded, right? Because that can feel also very unfair and unjust to the child whose parents are not getting the divorce, right? So you know, and sometimes, and listening to your child when they cry or they whine or they complain and say, no, I don't want to share this toy. Well, listening to your child, because that's important to your child. So you know, a way to address that could be, okay, I understand this toy is really special to you and it's very important to you. Is there something else that you'd be willing to share? And let's just put this thing away so nobody plays with it right now, since it's so special to you and it belongs to you. We can put that away for you and maybe bring something else out that you want to share, right? Like those type of conversations. So it's not all one-sided and nobody intentionally feels like, you know, they're getting gypped or they're getting the short end of the stick. And the last question about, do you think I should talk to my boys about their friends' parents? And if so, when? I think that there's no reason to hide things. And the more you can be connected and have open conversations with your children to know that it's okay and safe to talk about anything, that you're always willing to address it. Because children, when they have fears, they keep it usually hidden inside, and they start building stories around it, and they usually don't share it. And when they don't share it, they build their own stories. They start building beliefs about things from a very childish perspective, because they're a child, right? And so you want to make it safe and open for them to come to you with anything. That means you don't get upset about any question. Nothing is off the table. And when is a good time? I would say use your intuition and trust yourself about the timing. The timing is going to be, perhaps maybe when they're getting ready for bed, or at dinner time when everyone's like connected and there's no chaos going on. But really trust yourself and use your intuition on that.